So before I got sick, I would consider myself a totally normal, healthy, happy 20-year-old. I was in college at WKU and I was in a sorority, had a great boyfriend who is my soon to be husband, and lots of friends, great internship. God was giving me an abundant life, which I was so thankful for. And although I was a believer and had grown up as a Christian, at that point, I didn't have to rely fully on God to meet my needs. And so I didn't. I trusted in Him, I guess, but I'd never really been tested. In October of 2013, at the age of 20, I was very suddenly and shockingly diagnosed with a pseudopapillary tumor in my pancreas. I didn't know anything about a pancreas at that point, other than it had to do with maybe blood sugars. I really didn't know, never had any issues, so I'd never had to think about it. I was told at the cancer center that this tumor was eating away at my body, and that this horrible thing that was growing in me had to come out ASAP. So 2 weeks later, I went into surgery and had what's known as a Whipple, which is a very intensive and very difficult surgery, both for the surgeon and the patient. It removed that tumor that was taking up half of my pancreas. So along with that part of the pancreas, part of my stomach, intestines, gallbladder, lymph nodes, and they just reworked my entire insides after that point. We were lucky because everything was encapsulated. Nothing had spread. So at that point, I was declared cancer-free. I was thrilled. I was hoping that the time that I had taken off of school was only temporary, that I wouldn't be a permanent dropout, and that I'd be returning to life in, the next 3 to 4 months or so. Unfortunately, things never happened that way. Less than 2 months after my first surgery is when I had my first bout of pancreatitis, which was a pain I had never experienced. Even my post-op pain didn't compare to that. It was horrible. After that point, my pancreas never calmed down, and I was in the hospital over Christmas of that year, 2013. I was back on New Year's Eve, would be home for a few days, and then I'd go right back into the hospital. My pancreas just never calmed down, and the doctors weren't sure why. They had never seen somebody in my circumstances get the pancreatitis after having that surgery for the first time. It was crazy. There was a lot of unknowns, and I was becoming very quickly a very, very sick person. It was scary. It was hard. But I felt peace like I had never felt before. It was amazing because before I got sick, I was struggling with panic attacks and anxiety very severely. But once I found out that there was something wrong with me, God just gave me that peace that passes all understanding. That peace that you read about in the Bible and that you search for and you hope for. I had that peace. It was inexplicable, but I had it. In the moments that were scariest in my life, that peace just overcame it all. And that doesn't mean that there wasn't pain and sorrow, but that peace was ever present. Basically, my story's complicated and it's long. But the synopsis is this. Once I started with the pancreatitis, it never stopped. It never went away. And the only way to treat pancreatitis is to give the patient ample pain meds to try and get through, and nausea meds to try and get through it, and to make a patient NPO, which means nothing to eat or drink for a couple days on end, and then hopefully your pancreas will calm back down. And that never worked with me. So I was on TPN for a period of 30 days, which is IV nutrition in your arm, with nothing to eat or drink. That didn't work. After that, as I continued to get sicker, I was put on a feeding tube and had to do what I thought was impossible. I went over 300 days without a single bite of food. Not a crumb, nothing. Nothing in my mouth. The only nutrition I got was through my feeding tube, which was in my abdomen. It had to pump 24/7 at a very slow rate. It made me very sick. I was malnourished. I was wasting away to nothing. The pancreatitis was getting worse. I was in the scariest time of my life, the worst time of my life. I was bedridden. Here I was, 20 to 21 years old, dropped out of school, couldn't see my friends, couldn't even get out of bed for longer than a few minutes, hooked up to these tubes in this horrible pole 24/7 in excruciating pain all the time. And I couldn't even have the comfort of a bite to eat or lots of times something to drink. Luckily for me, I had access to great doctors who, though it took a long time, were searching for some answers for me. I had a family who loved me and accepted me with all of my flaws, and a boyfriend, now fiance, soon to be husband, who stood by me through everything. Best friends who didn't give up on me. I thought over and over and over, how lucky am I that I was born into a country and into a family who could take care of my unique needs and who could help me in this journey and would never reject me, even though I felt such guilt and like such a burden to them. They never made me feel that way. And I'm so lucky for that, because I know that's not the case in a lot of places. And I'll get more to that later. So in November of 2014, I ended up having the rest of my pancreas removed and my spleen, and I had something called an islet cell transplant, which takes the insulin-making cells from your pancreas and puts them in your liver. After that point, I was in the hospital a very long time, very, very sick. But once I've had that pancreas out, my quality of life has gone way up. And I'm so thankful that I was able to have that operation. Unfortunately, still, like I'm saying, I'm very sick and I'm going to be chronically ill because of all these other conditions that I have. And though I'm learning to eat again, and it's been over a year since I've started eating again, my body's not responding to it, and I have severe paralysis in my GI tract, and I'm basically on small amounts of liquids, and that food, that nourishment still is not here for me, and it's horrible. It's incredibly painful, incredibly difficult to not be able to have that normalcy in life of eating and eating with people and being able to keep it down and being able to nourish yourself. And I'm still in a period of time where I can't work, I can't go back to school. My focus is 100% on trying to heal and trying to figure out with my medical team ways to make me better. And I know that this suffering to this extent is not forever, but the suffering and the pain through the rest of my life is going to be there. And that's a very hard pill to swallow, to say the dreams that I had for myself are gone. And, you know, I don't like it when people say you can't let your sickness or your disabilities or whatever it may be hold you back or stop you from doing things. And I agree. I don't want those things to stop anybody from living a full life. But when you're very seriously ill, you are limited to what your body allows you to do. You just are, and you have to live within those means. But my message to people who are seriously ill, chronically and terminally ill, you can still find ways to have a full life. And what Rob and Amy are doing through O.V.I is amazing. They are giving the children who are chronically and terminally ill and orphans and who don't have the love and support that they need, they are helping them to lead a full life for however long they have on this earth. And that's so important. For me, without access to proper medical care, without the support and love of my family and my church and the prayers of many, I would not be here today. And I know that without a shadow of a doubt. I would not be here able to talk to you and give you this very important message. And so my hope and my prayer is that O.V.I is able to provide for these orphans and give them the love that they so desperately need, and give them access to the gospel, which can give them hope and faith that things will get better. And though they may have a life full of suffering, they can find joy in the Lord, and they can find a purpose for their life through the Lord, and they can know that their pain is not in vain, because God will turn it around and use it for something great. But these kids are never given that opportunity to know those things. And without that hope, how do you make it? How would you survive? I wouldn't be here. There's so many times that I've thought, I'm longing for my heavenly home. And I'm a Christian, and I have the support that I need. And I have the finances to take care of my medical bills and health insurance. And I still think those things. So my heart just breaks for those children who not only have their bodies rejected them, but their families have rejected them. Their communities, the people who are supposed to love them most, they feel like they are that burden. How guilty and terrible those children must feel for something that they cannot control. And what Amy and Rob are doing is incredible. It's awe-inspiring, it's breathtaking, it's beautiful, it can only come from God. And I am so honored and humbled and thankful to play even the tiniest role in helping them to answer that calling that's on their life. Children who are chronically and terminally ill, they cannot be in a normal orphanage. Their needs go above and beyond what institutions, normal hospitals, orphanages are equipped to handle. Because I know that lots of medical facilities, doctor's offices, hospitals here in America are not equipped to handle my unique needs. Imagine in Kenya with those children. There's probably nowhere that's equipped to handle them. And O.V.I is working to give them something, to give them their fullest life. I want, I guess my message and my prayer through my whole sickness has been, God, would you use this for your glory? Would you somehow take all of the ugly and work it into something that is beautiful? And He is doing that. And He is giving opportunities such as this for my story to somehow shine His glory and work for His will and His goodness and the glory of His kingdom. And that is beautiful. God answers, and He gives us the ability to take that which is so awful and say, Lord, I can endure it because it's for you and it's for your kingdom. And I will honor you and your will in everything that I do. God is our healer. He is our hope and our comfort. He is the only way we can make it through anything. And though I would never, ever wish this terrible, terrible sickness and circumstance on my life, I know that it's the greatest thing for my life that could have happened to further the kingdom of God. And so for that, I praise and I thank Him. And I honor Him for choosing me to be a disciple for him and to be his very small voice. And so I just ask everyone today to please put your hope in the Lord. And when you're faced with something that is insurmountable and impossible, trust that with him, his strength will make up for your weakness and you will get through it. With God, all things are possible. Amen.